Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Sunday. First off, let me say I apologize for not getting yesterday's video out. That's chalk it up to plain forgetfulness because I could have swore I had put it up, right? So, yesterday wasn't too bad of a day. We end up going to dropping off a customer's machine, picking up another one, going to an auction, and then back home. So, what's today's video going to be on? Well, could be a little on my adventure, but I'd like to go into where it usually is not good to envy or wish you could be somebody that you're not. So stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back to the channel. My name is Eric, and yes, this is the weekend. Today is Sunday, March 9th, 2025. If you're interested in the business side or how-tos, a lot of times it's Monday through Friday. That's the weekday. But on the weekend, I kind of go off the rails a little bit and just talk about nothing. So yesterday I asked my son if he could come out and give us a hand, basically, because I'm useless to the certain extent. And so he showed up early, and Claude had loaded the Farmall Cub the day before. So that was already hooked to the trailer, was hooked to my truck with the Farmall Cub in the trailer behind it. So Claude ended up showing up around 9:30. I had gone down to the shop at 7 because I've decided to try to. My sister had mentioned it to me that I should write a book on my experiences, you know, prior to the heart issue, my feelings and what took place up to the surgery itself, and then the recovery. And I decided to do it not so much as something when it's finished to get published. It was more of to try to look into things. And I hadn't realized how much I had forgotten or buried. That, a lot of times we do that, all right? If we have a traumatic event, we try to bury it so that we can at least function daily. And sometimes we can't function daily. There are days where, you're just trying to make it through that day. And you can't wait for nightfall to come. Will it ever be published? Only God knows. It may end up being another chink in my armor of where I found an outlet to try to bring up that forgotten, buried stuff and deal with it now instead of later, right? Because what ends up happening is if you don't deal with it now and you stifle it, it's sitting there acting like a ticking time bomb, and you never know when it's going to explode. You don't. And a lot of us, I've always called it in the past baggage. We all have baggage. We all, drag our experiences from the past and keep adding to them. And most of them are the negative experiences that we've had that we put into that bag that we throw over our shoulder, right? And try to drag. And the more experiences we have, the more skewed we get because we're unwilling to deal with what's in that bag called baggage. We just toss stuff in there because we don't want to deal with it. We don't have time to deal with it. It could be I have kids. I mean, I work, and then when I get home, I try to get everything done. I don't have time for myself. I hear that a lot. And I always felt that way too. I'm a busy-bodied person. I like to be busy. I don't like to sit on the sidelines and just watch. I like to participate. So I brought up envy. And why do I bring up envy? Because I see so many people look at someone else and wish they could be more like them or they could be them. And the thing that goes through my mind is a lot of times we have no clue what that other person went through to get to where they're at. We don't take into consideration would we be willing to give up certain things in our life in order to achieve other things. See, what's important to me may not be important to you, and that's okay. We may have different goals in life, and that's called each of us being unique, right? Right? Because God made each one of us unique. He didn't make us all the same. We all have our quirkiness. But in the same breath, we're all awesome. I love the word awesome. That's what my granddaughter uses a lot. Oh, that's awesome. You're awesome. But it's a way to describe someone that doesn't feel awesome. But you're still awesome. See, we start to envy people, and the problem with envying is it's very destructive. And envy is a word of its own. It's not you sitting there wishing you could be, more like the other person. In general, it's you really want to be like that person because you hate yourself that much. That's envy. And what you don't really know is that other person is looking back at you saying the same thing. I wish I was more like them. I'm more like her, more like him than myself. We don't realize how special we are, how unique we are. Our species are very social. And what I'm seeing a lot now is with texting, messaging, we're losing that socialization. Most people that feel like they're lacking in life, that's what they're lacking. I'm a people person. I want to know about you. I want to know about your family. I want to know what your likes and dislikes are. And I'm not asking you how is your day going just for conversation. If you're having a bad day, I have no problem with you saying I'm having a bad day. Because if you tell me I'm having a bad day, the response you're going to get from me is, if we're in an area where it's private, I'll ask what's going on. If we're where other people are, I'll pull you aside and we'll go somewhere where we can have some privacy, and I'll say, what's up? Because a lot of times people that are having bad days just need to get it off their chest, whatever is bothering them, whatever's bothering you. And for the most part, it just requires being a good listener and repeating back to them what you're hearing. to make sure that you're both hearing the same thing. And what I find a lot of times when I do that with someone, they answer their own questions of what to do, how to deal with things. But the biggest thing that they walk away with is they are no longer alone with it. They are no longer alone with it. That goes back to us being social. I mean, I'm not talking about that person that is in crisis all the time. We all know them. And you're only willing to ask what's going on only just so many times because the person creates their own crises. Why would you create your own crises? Because you're screaming out that you want to have more social things going on in your life. You're being left to yourself in your own demise. If you're not taking part where other people are and sharing, being social, the tendency is you're left to your own thoughts. And that's never good for extended periods of time. You just want to be heard. You want somebody to hear you, to know that you exist, right? But there's the right way and the wrong way to do that. The wrong way is to continually create crises. The right way is to interject yourself into social gatherings. And I'm not saying go to places that you're not invited. I guess you could just start going to, weddings and saying you're part of the thing so you got something to eat. I don't know. Just texting, messaging, I don't know. You're losing that. I like the in-person. Phone is, I don't consider that great, but it's a hell of a lot better than your texting and messaging. Why is that? Because you can hear the different tones, sarcasm, sighs, when someone else is on the phone. But better yet, when you're in person, you can see body languages. And I do look at body language. If you're having a conversation with someone and they cross their arms in front of them, that conversation is over. That is telling you that they are not hearing anything from that point on. They've shut down. For whatever reason, they've shut down. The conversation is over. You can go on and on and on for hours, and it's not going to do anything to or for, It's a waste of time. You can say, did I say something that has offended you or something like that? To get the person back into the conversation. But a lot of times, if a person hears something they don't want to hear, they shut down. Or if you're treating them like a child, another adult, or talking down to them, talk at your own level. I don't feel that I'm any better or any worse than anybody else on this planet. It's just me. We all put our pants on the same way. Well, most of us. So, talking to anyone at any time, I have no problems with. Very rarely will I cross my arms. Very rarely. Because I'm astutely aware that if I'm crossing my arms, I'm all done listening. Just something to give thought about. So one of the things that I found that's helpful if you're trying to deal with things is to break it down into more manageable pieces. A lot of times, he said, she said, you know. But the other thing that I notice is if we go through a traumatic event, could be a loss of a loved one, could be a breakup where words were said in anger. Or for me, it could be laying on a cold slab in the operating room and I could hear people talking, but I couldn't make sense of what they were saying. I couldn't move. I just laid there. I tried lifting one of my arms and I couldn't. But if we don't deal with that kind of stuff, it just lays just under the surface, waiting to go off. And you don't get the time and the place when it goes off, unless you decide to try to tackle it. The worst thing you can do is just leave it there. Because you never know when, it's not if, it's when it's going to blow up into your face. And what I've started doing, and it has helped quite a bit so far, it's filled me with terrible emotions, but it's a way to cope and deal with stuff. And I'm taking myself back to what led up to going into the ER, going into the urgent care a couple weeks prior. Were there warning signs? Was I in complete denial? Right up to the 2.5-hour transport in an ambulance, where it was mostly silence. Trying to get my thoughts together and wrap myself around what was taking place. Of what the doctor said to the ER. And the kind words the female EMT was saying to me, "We've got you." What I can tell you is the quicker you deal with it and break it down and work through it, the better off you're going to be. And do it in segments. Don't try to tackle the whole thing. Break it down into manageable pieces and write down your thoughts, your feelings of what the event was and what led up to it and what was the after effect. And when you get to the end, you've got two options. You can either keep the notes as keepsake, or you can burn them. Because at that point, you no longer need them. Because you've worked through the process. You've worked through the process. So on that note, you guys have a great Sunday, and I'll catch you here bright and early for the weekday, Monday through Friday, tomorrow morning. Don't forget your clocks went back last night. You guys have a wonderful day.